from what I can remember, they were looking for a second guitar player. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm down, right? It would be cool to play in a band and get something going, right? Because I couldn't find a band for the life of me. I was just always on Craigslist, trying to, putting a black metal drummer, death metal drummer.
What is up, my friends? Thanks again for tuning in. This is the Scoped Exposure podcast. You love to see your friends that you meet when you're both playing in bands that, when you look back, you're like, yeah, those were fun times, but like, I'm really excited about the projects that were going on. And, when you see the growth and the evolution of, all these different musicians that you just started playing like power chords and just really basic riffs with. And someone specifically that I guess I think looked up to as like a riff master and someone who just like anytime his bands would come through Calgary, I would just be just in awe behind my camera, just filming them and some of the squealies and solos that they would pull off. And to see, a band like a Morning Star from Vancouver just absolutely crushing it right now. And with a new record coming out, I knew that I wanted to have, some kind of conversation with one of the members. And when Christian kind of came to the table, I was like, let's set it up. Let's do it. So it is my absolute pleasure to be welcoming the self-proclaimed riff-raff of black metal, Christian of a Morning Star and Crucible of Sorrow. Dude, thanks for joining me.
What's up, man? Yeah, well, thanks for having me, man. It's a pleasure. It's been a while since we've talked anyway, so
yeah,
time to catch up.
It is definitely time to catch up, and I think selfishly, this podcast is a nice way for me to have those like one-on-one interactions because you do get that at shows, but it's very, very speed dating-esque where you're like bouncing from person to person at times. So yeah, I'm excited to, catch up but also get a little bit like more context about,
Yeah, for sure. Some insight.
You as, all of that good stuff. But, Christian, I don't know how often you listen to the show, but we always check a beverage of any kind before we get into the music chat.
Oh, I know.
Guess go first. So tell me what you're
water
rocking.
Today. Rocking water today. Been nice and healthy. No Jack and Cokes today, so got to be a good boy.
Is that the usual, fancy bev of choice for you?
Yeah, when I'm out and about, but I do like my neutrals and all that, less bloaty. But during the week, I just stick to the water for the most part.
Yeah. You got the water in the wine glass, so
exactly.
You're trying to, you're thinking
50-50. Exactly. I'm ahead of the game, man.
Right. What's your neutral flavor of choice?
I'd say I usually go towards anything that's cherry.
Dude, anything
Can't
cherry, I think for like hard seltzers or not, is the absolute goated move.
You can't go wrong. You still can't beat beer, but now it's at that point where it's like you have one or two and they're just bloated. You feel heavy and it's like, but
yeah.
So I'm sticking to those for now.
Mm-hmm. So for bevs for me, I've had this in my fridge for 2 months, and I've been waiting to have something that feels appropriate for, the bev needs to match the band that, we're doing an episode largely based around.
Yeah.
So, with a Morning Star being probably your main project, I have with me a Prime hydration drink, but it's the Meta Moon flavor.
Dope. It's definitely the vibe, I would think. Yeah. Cool name.
I don't know if you've had Prime yourself. I've only had a few of the different flavors, but never this one. So it'll be a first time.
I've had one or two, I believe. Yeah, it's pretty good. Can't go wrong.
I've had the hydration and then the energy drinks. I'm into the energy drink version that they do, but
interesting.
Yeah. But
I don't know that they had a energy one, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. That was just all like basically like Gatorade or something like that,
I think that they have every single flavor for hydration, maybe minus this one in an energy drink form.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
To try that out.
Yeah. You'll have to be on the hunt next time when you're, getting something
for sure
fancy. But Christian, thanks for coming on the pod. Cheers to you, buddy.
Cheers. Yeah.
Whoa. What's going on? That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
blowing your mind.
Yeah, it's definitely like, anything that has like a coconut water or something. It's like definitely like, it doesn't have a lot of sugar contents, but like I can taste that like coconut.
That coconut.
Crazy. Yeah.
Interesting choice.
To the moon.
Yeah, to the moon, man. To the moon and back.
So, Christian, obviously we're going to talk about A Morning Star, but any person who's like new here on the podcast, we've had a couple people now that have come twice, even 3 times on repeat episodes. But if it's your first time here, I always kind of ask the same kind of intro question and kind of get, a little bit of context about how you got into heavy music, hardcore, punk, metal, however you want to spin it. So talk to me about the, first moments that kind of planted seeds and kind of put you on the path that you're on.
Sure. Probably when I was the age of, let's say, 12 years old, I was in the car with my father there, and he put on the song Battery by Metallica. And that's kind of what started it off, right? But that was kind of like, okay, this song's cool. But then the song they put on after was Sanitarium. And that's the song that started it all. So after that, basically begged my parents to get me a guitar. They got me a acoustic guitar, which I kind of like fiddled around with. And then my dad finally got me a actual electric guitar. It was like this Epiphone Budweiser guitar where it was like half painted down the middle. Yeah, it was Budweiser or Bud Light, something like that. But it was a beer guitar, and the thing was heavy as fuck. Like it weighed like 1,000,000 pounds. But basically I just started jamming on that nonstop. And I got during the summer, I just basically locked myself in the room and I just gave her from there, man, and just haven't looked back, right? So that was like the very initial starting point in terms of getting to playing guitar and the heavier side of music, at least,
Yeah.
Like Metallica and all that, right?
When your dad was showing you Metallica, was it a very casual, like he just turned it on, or he was like, son, pay attention to this? Like, was he pretty like intentional about you like focusing on that, or did it just like catch your ears just naturally that way?
Definitely intentional, for sure.
Okay.
So
he was like, you better like this. Yeah. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, and I did. And here we are now, So yeah, that was definitely like the gateway there. And then basically from there, I just branched off into Slayer, which I completely became obsessed with. Obviously, they are a fantastic band, And from there, I went into Cannibal Corpse. And then from there, it's off into like the death metal realm, And
yeah. So you were just guitar nerd, like, day one at times.
Basically. But when I started playing, I was like, I just figured everything out on my own. I just learned everything from tabs. And basically, there's no lessons involved, which, I have paid for in the future, obviously, when it comes to proper technique, when it comes to certain things, right? But definitely, I just kind of picked it up and I just gave her,
Yeah.
There's no stopping.
I think I was the same way in the sense of like, a lot of, most things that I've done creatively, whether it's through music or even the stuff I do with this podcast or video, has a lot of it is self-taught, but there are certain things where it's like, man, like, especially on the music side where like you were saying, like different techniques or things that I wish that I actually like sat down and like practice scales and different things. Like, even to this day, I think of myself more of like a rhythm guitarist than like a lead per se. But like were you just like, I don't want to do the homework per se, or like were you more like, how do I play these specific songs that I'm listening to of these specific bands?
It was essentially a bit of both. Definitely I was way too hyped on the guitar to even sit down and concentrate on really put like doing my homework, and at the same time I basically just learned by just like finding songs that I liked and just trying to figure it out, and that's where like tabs really come into play, right? That's basically all I know how to read, besides a little bit of actual like music from jazz band and all that. But basically just hearing songs, and that was it. Just try to like learn them, and that's about it, right? But I was just way too hyped on it in the first place to really sit down and concentrate and do the homework, right? For sure. Definitely.
Yeah. I definitely went through like 4 different like guitar teachers because my parents were definitely like, okay, you're into this music shit, which is awesome, but like you need to do lessons. And I'm just like with my iPod Classic, like playing Slipknot songs, like how do I play this like noise that I'm hearing, which was like either like a pinch harmonic or some kind of like weird like pick scrape or whatever it was. And the person's like, did you practice this scale? I was like, no, I want to learn, you know? So.
The 0 to 100, you know, super fast, right? You know, or it's just, it's hard to do. And like, especially like hearing, you know, like some of these techniques, and it's just like, it's almost impossible in your head. Like, will I ever be able to do this at some point, especially being that young, you know, for example, you know, like pinch harmonics or just even dive bombs and stuff like that. Right. But, once you finally hit it, it's like your whole like world opens, like, damn, I can really do this, you know, especially at like, you know, like a young age where you're doing things. So at least I was like very, like, what's the word? I don't know if unorthodox would be like the word, but, like just not doing things right, I guess you could say. Right. And somehow still like achieving those goals down the road. Or it's like, damn, it's cool. You know?
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I think through the conversations I've had here on the podcast, I don't believe that there's necessarily, and I think I have this belief even outside of music. It's like, I don't care, like people just kind of see the end result of something, whether it's like a riff or a video or like whatever you do. But like, you are the only one that actually sees the process of how to get there. And like,
of course,
I've interviewed people on this podcast that like literally learned how to play guitar like upside down, in the sense of like they were a lefty, but they were playing, you know, a right-handed guitar just that way, but they play the frets like upside down, and they still play that to this day. And
which is insane.
And this is a band that like tours and like plays crazy like festivals and is on a huge label. Like, but like if you put it together that this person like learned the wrong way, that doesn't discredit, like, if anything, it makes it cooler, in my opinion, that they're doing everything that we're doing, but like just differently, but a same result, you know?
Which is cool. And that's what really forms like a lot of fantastic guitar players when it comes to like their own certain styles and all that. You like the craziest guitar players out there. They've just learned at home this and that, and just have had these crazy learning experiences, which have shaped them as a guitar player and which makes them so great today. And at the end of the day, if you want to learn guitar, at the end of the day, all you need is the passion. Whether you have you know, if you actually do it, you know, I'm not going to say like a proper way, but you know, if you get like a guitar teacher and you do this and that and you do all your homework, or you just learn on your own, the one key, you know, ingredient is just having the passion. If you have the passion, you'll get there no matter what.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think even like maybe not being able to play at the level of the guitarists that I looked up to, like, you know, and this is anything from like listening to Slipknot to Avenged Sevenfold and having the dueling guitar shit. You know? But even then it was just like, I really focused. I was like, okay, my strengths are definitely, at least like, I still think this, but like, I definitely saw myself more as like a songwriter than you know, someone that could shred. And I think specifically in like, you know, punk or hardcore, like that is almost like a more valuable tool than like, you know, someone who's able just to like bust out the fattest like solo possible, you know?
For sure. Definitely. Yeah.
So talk to me about like when, I guess you know, I think everyone starts at like that high level, like, you know, radio metal or whatever it is, and then they kind of like slowly find the more underground scene and some of that.
For sure.
How did that play in for you? And when did someone, or was it you who was like, I'm gonna start playing guitar in a band like that?
In terms of what we're talking about, like hardcore or just like underground metal?
Yeah. Just talk to me about like the first time you were like, oh, there's bands who will play arenas, and then there's bands who will play like to 15 people. Huge gap there. That's definitely a good question for sure. Like I can definitely work it down, because basically I really I'm not gonna, well, they definitely don't play huge like arenas, but I would say Nile for sure. Insane death metal band, and just like the Egyptian riffs and scales really called out to me. And they're not playing
like Rogers Arena and like all these huge venues and all that. But that band was definitely like the band where it's like, okay, there's like an underground kind of scene going on here, even though they're still a successful band, right? And then from there, I'm trying to think of what band actually that's like underground that I really got into. I think it was basically at that base level with like Nile and let's say Dying Fetus and like Death and all that. Like definitely not huge arena bands, but they were playing, packed, like smaller venues and all that. And that was definitely my gateway into it. And then I basically just became obsessed with Nile and Dying Fetus and Death. And that was kind of like the next level after all those big arena bands, right? And then from there, I just really stayed there for a long time, and still I am, still kind of there. But like what I mean, right? Like once I get hooked on something, it's just like the same thing over and over for me, sadly, right? But how I really got introduced to like underground like music where you're playing like small venues would be I was in high school. And I was kind of going through like a bit of like from like a death metal to like a deathcore phase, right? And basically, I heard about this local band, or I heard about this band that I was playing, and I had no idea that they were local. So I looked them up, and which was Angel Maker, and I had no idea that they were from Vancouver. I was like, "Damn, this is fucking crazy, right?" And this was my first local show, I guess you could say, that I actually went to, and it was at 333, and I showed up there and. Just seeing this band play, and it was like maybe 150 people, give or take. But
which for the folks at home that have never been to 333, like that is like the most packed garage like shit that you can imagine. Like ripped to like literally one of, I think, will go down as one of the best DIY spots in Western Canada, maybe of all time.
Yes, definitely.
Do you think that's 100%. Fair to say?
Yeah, it's definitely fair to say. Iconic venue for sure. And blessed to, sorry?
I was just going to say, like, I was only fortunate to see, like, to be at one of those shows, obviously, like, living in Calgary and some of that, but, like, to hear of some of the bands that would come and play there as, like, a second show after playing, like, a place like the Rickshaw was just so crazy to me. But, yeah, please continue.
Yeah, I know. So that venue is obviously iconic, right? And just being in that venue and just seeing all like the magic there, I guess you could say, right? With just seeing, like the band show up, like close and personal, and just meeting so many people, and just like seeing like this DIY kind of vibe going on, right? And just seeing everyone that's in the same area as me, that's into the same music, really called out to me, because like at least when I was growing up in White Rock, there was like me and like one other kid, right? That were into like the same kind of music, kind of dressed the same way, and just seeing all these people together in one room. Like, damn, this is what I want to be a part of, right? So that was like the big moment going to like the underground scene, I guess you could say, for metal in general. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you kind of definitely like worked from like the super metal extremes, and you were like, you definitely kind of discovered hardcore, but you were coming more from that like deathcore, death metal side.
Yeah, definitely death metal for sure. Yeah.
Because I think the first time that we met was when you were playing in Backbite, and I think it's just, again, you don't know these context things, so you just assume that everyone just got into punk and hardcore kind of through a similar vein of hardcore versus like, no, I'm a death metal kid through and through. So
yeah, for sure, definitely, man. Yeah, it's definitely kind of weird how I even got into hardcore at first. Because after that Angel Maker show, I was doing some work up there in Prince George, whatever, not really doing anything like music wise. And I came down because I moved back down, right? And I'm like, fuck, like I really want to go to a show. And I heard that my buddy Eli, which I went to high school like with him for basically 4 years, because I graduated at a separate high school for grade 12. But like we were like, like friends in high school, I guess you could say for sure, right? And I saw that he was playing in like this, like hardcore punk band, right? And I was like, damn, this is cool. I didn't know that he's doing that. Like I had no idea that he was even into that kind of like music in the first place, right? Because he was definitely, like a youth group kid, right? Just sick. And I'm like, cool, I guess I'll go check this out, right? I had nothing else to do. And I guess that was Backbite's second show. I think it was their second show. And it was at 333. So I rolled out there, and it was nice to catch up with Eli, and like, I was, just like, just like meeting all the guys. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I met Luca there, and Brandon, he was the old guitar player there in Backbite, and we just all connected, and it's kind of just history from there, and like, cool. This is like the hardcore scene. Cool. At least they're having shows, and, even though it's not death metal, but like, I could definitely appreciate, like the community there. Right.
For sure. So like cause, and just correct me if I'm wrong here, but like, in my opinion, you're like a guitar god, and you're just like showing up at this like hardcore show, and like maybe people might catch on. And they're like, oh, this dude actually knows more than just playing like banana riffs, essentially, like banana.
Yeah.
So like, was that kind of the idea, or was it more on you like, I want to be a part of this community, so I'm just going to offer up to play guitar in a band? Or were you like sought out for your skills more so?
Definitely not sought out, because I don't really even know anyone there in the first place besides Eli and maybe one other person. But basically, I can't remember how the conversation came up, but basically, they knew that I played guitar after like meeting them. And from what I can remember, they were looking for a second guitar player. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm down, right? It would be cool to play in a band and get something going, right? Because I couldn't find a band for the life of me. I was just always on Craigslist, trying to, putting in black metal drummer, death metal drummer, this and that, could just never find anyone. I was always just jamming with guys who are like 40 years old, right? And obviously with that age gap, there's kind of, I was like 19, definitely some differences there, right? So
yeah,
I'm like, cool, like, let's give this a shot. And then basically, just started breaking up the riffs, and they really, like, enjoyed the riffs. And we kind of just went from there, and I kind of just like threw my own twist on it, right? Because I already had a demo out, I believe. Can't remember the name. There's a couple of songs there, and I definitely instantly took it in like a more like metal direction, like right off the bat.
I remember when the first couple times I saw you guys, and I think maybe it was specifically when Backpipe played the Scope 2 here, I was like, there are some thrash metal riffs in here for sure. Because it definitely was like Backbite's a hardcore band, but I think at that during that set specifically, I was like, something's in the water. And I think it's largely off of like some of the influences that you clearly had.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, I just wanted to turn that band straight into like a thrash band, basically, I guess, like you could say. But I had so many influences at the time. I was just trying to jam it all into one, which was like,
easier
like what I mean.
done.
But yeah, easier said than done. But we definitely had some cool songs, and had some good songs for sure. But that was definitely like my first takeoff there in hardcore, and definitely a huge learning experience just in terms of songwriting. Yeah, actually having to sit down, like, okay, we got to finish the song like through and through, just not have a bunch of jumbled riffs, right?
Yeah. I also think that you might be the first person ever on this podcast out of our 200 and almost 70 episodes who's like, yeah, I've posted on the Craigslist being like looking for.
Yeah,
I'm sure more people have
of course,
have done that, and maybe it's never come up, or they didn't want to admit it or whatever. But it is the classic thing, and I'm sure you've seen this too now, being well a part of the community for so many years. There's still people who like just don't get that the actual way of like going to play in a band is like going to shows, meeting people, making connections, and going from there. Not like,
which is easier said than done.
True.
It's pretty damn hard to find people, tell you that much.
Yeah.
Especially when you're new to like, like a community or a scene like that, and just starting to kind of like dip your feet into it. And it takes a while. It at least took me a while to like really lock down some, like solid people, right? Where, cause you obviously have to vibe with them too, right? But easier said than done, because when you're like brand new, it's kind of like intimidating, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely like, I think there should be not like an onus, but like an encouragement of people that like know that kid that like, has a guitar and like is into it and like likes, I don't know, Disturbed or like something just like a little off the beaten path, and just like bringing them to a show, introing them, and then like trying to like let them like fly out the nest to maybe link up with a couple kids to start a new band, like, but like you said, it's like, it can be intimidating, but I don't know if we're getting out of a time, but like there's been lots of people who've come on the podcast that are like just so hungry for it, and like they put themselves in that uncomfortable position of like being at that show where they know no one and they're like, well, I'll just stand here until someone talks to me, maybe. And then, you know.
Yeah. Which I'm definitely seeing a lot more of, at least here in Vancouver, where after COVID, seeing a lot of, new faces. Not many of them, like stick around, but it's at least nice to see like new people coming out just to even see this type of music, right? And that's like step one, is just having kids to keep coming to shows, right? Then you can start to get bands going and all that, which everyone down here is trying to push, right? So we definitely need some new bands down here, need some new hardcore bands for sure.
Okay, so one thing, I kind of want, before we get into a Morning Star, like, I think every scene is obviously having that post-pandemic kind of like boom as far as a bunch of new kids and a bunch of new bands and a bunch of new excitement around this. Because, like, I'm sure you and I can attest, like, things were good-ish in Western Canada at the time, like, into 2019, especially even going into 2020 at the early years before the big kerfuffle. But there's just such a really vibrancy, and especially in Vancouver, I'm really seeing, and that is largely due to a lot of the cool bands that are a part of the scene. Obviously, like, Here Now is like absolutely crushing it with so many awesome gigs. How has that been for you? Just someone who, again, has kind of gone through that whole time, and I think is playing in a band that definitely has a large part to do with that. What's been your perspective on all that?
Well, basically, like Here Now, it's definitely been like holding it down, right? Because you need someone to actually throw these shows and actually put all these bands together, right? And all those guys got connections, and they got such a huge passion and love for hardcore, and they've just been grinding it out, right? And that's honestly like why the scene's like really popping, because if you got no shows, you got no scene, right? And then and you need someone to step up just to get it done, right? So with that, it's just like getting new kids into the scene and just like basically just like building that love for the music, and then eventually down the road maybe they'll take like the torch, right? So it's just basically just keep it going, right? But it's definitely booming now with like a lot of shows, right? There's a lot of shows happening, even for like touring death metal and like black metal shows down here, right? And there's definitely like a lot of new faces, but down here we got like the same like 10 kids and all the same bands just rotating, like what I mean. So it'd definitely be nice to see some like actual like young kids come and just get a band going and just give her,
Yeah, and sometimes all it takes is one, right? All it takes is like one, like, especially a young band to like inspire other young bands to start, but also like inspire like the people that have been doing it for 10 years plus, like, oh yeah, it's not just all us in our almost 30s now, like some of us in our 30s who have been doing this and like, holding it down, so to speak, but like, and I'm speaking as someone who, like, when I was getting into hardcore in Winnipeg and there was like only 18 plus shows and there was no like young kids who could even come to shows, let alone could start bands. So the average age was like mid 20 at that. And now that like things have changed, there's a ton of like young and dope bands from Winnipeg. But when I moved to Calgary, it was like this scene average age level like dropped at least 5 years. And it's like really like, I think it's very important to see that and experience that, because hardcore is like a youth movement, and I feel like if it's only on the 30, the late 20s to 30-year-olds, it's like that shit will die very, very.
And it just comes down to like having actual venues where it can be all ages, right? Because if you don't really have a strong scene, you don't really have enough people putting on shows, you don't really have like DIY venues, right? You kind of need that concentration to have those kind of venues in the first place, right? Because if you just have touring hardcore bands, it's always like 19 plus. It's really hard to kind of build the scene in the first place, right? Because you need newer, younger kids coming in to experience it and just keep building it, right? So,
yeah, and I feel like it's getting more and more important and vital now, because we're like in an age where the internet's at scale, like people got too many options of like niches and shit to do. So if if they don't even have the option to like go to an 18 plus show within those first couple of years of high school, they're gonna get
Yeah.
into fucking
Something else. Yeah.
Yeah, something else
Yeah.
through their TikTok algorithm versus like
Yeah.
something that's like, to me, has given me way more like joy, like, you know, just like different opportunities, like just so many different aspects of my life have come because of this weird music community that I feel so connected to. And
Yeah.
I definitely think that if there were certain non all ages opportunities, those seeds wouldn't have been planted, and we probably wouldn't be sitting here. Like, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, of course, definitely. Yeah. It's the way she goes, you know?
That's the way she goes.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about, you know, you and how you got started. You know,
Yeah.
for those that don't know, like Backbite, the band that we've referenced a couple
Yeah.
times, you guys played your last show at the very beginning of 2020. Obviously, the world ends that year. When does the idea of a Morning Star start to form? How does it form? Like, what's the initial game plan? Did you guys want to start as like a really serious, heavy touring project, or did that come later? Talk to me about the initial stages of AMS.
Well, okay. Yeah. So basically how that started out was before I was even involved in the project, it was Eli and Byron, right? They were roommates, and they really wanted to do a project that was kind of just like very like Undying, basically, right? And at that time, there weren't really that many bands doing that, and they're obviously just nerds about that, you know, like that kind of, you know, that, you know, genre, right? And that band especially, right? So they obviously wanted to get something going. So basically, yeah, so for the first jam, I think Eli got me on board because they kind of had like this idea of a band that they wanted to do. And obviously, you know, like I played with Eli for a long time, and he's like, oh, I know the guy. So he hit me up, and we got one jam going, and it's just like magic, like right off the bat, right? Basically had like a couple of songs kind of like flushed out after the first jam. And then after that, we got basically the plan was to have Tyler Pearson from Here and Now and Second Nature to play second guitar. And then to have her buddy, Byron's buddy at the time, Kurt Cuffey, to play bass. So the second jam, they started playing, they almost switched instantly. So then Kurt started playing guitar, Tyler was playing bass. I can't remember how that happened, but it just happened. Okay.
Well, because you played, you and Tyler both played guitar and Backbite.
Yes, so, we did.
Like that
but
sounds
Tyler was
like...
supposed to play guitar. Yeah. Somehow they switched instruments. I don't know. I can't remember the reason why, but it was like almost instant. And yeah, from there it kind of just went from there, right? We just started jamming, and just the songs were coming so easily. There was definitely magic there. And this was after the whole pandemic, and I haven't been like at least involved or even playing music for like 2 years. So like I almost lost like all my chops, and just like it was rough, man. So it was really nice to be back in the game, and like I can't just be, you know, like I got to go for the dream, you know. And yeah, we just started jamming like once every week, every 2 weeks, something like that. And basically wrote the demo pretty damn fast. And yeah. And then as for the name, A Morning Star, Eli came up with that. Can't remember exactly how he came up with it, but it was definitely a name that he had in his back pocket for a while, and he really pushed for it. And we had like 5 names, and we like voted on it like 3 times. And somehow it just came out to like A Morning Star, and that's it, man.
Can you disclose the other contenders of names, or do you want to leave
I
those?
can't even remember. I can't even remember. Yeah. It's been so long, but yeah. So I mean, like after that,
when I heard it, like when someone said, oh yeah, like a bunch of the Backbite boys are doing a new band called A Morning Star, I was like, what does it sound like? Like, is it like, because, you know, you like without knowing I guess not the misspelling, because it's just a different way of spelling that word, but like,
yeah, of course.
It's very, I feel like it's a very smart band name, but I think when you first hear it, you think it's going to be like, I don't know, a K-pop group or something like something like, if you don't know that it's a heavy band, you're just like, to me, that doesn't, it's I don't know.
It's like a gospel band or something. It's got, definitely a gospel in there.
Something like that. But that kind of led me to to a question here, because I know we all know that someone like Shoe Nice is gonna, you know, say it as Morning Stars, which when I saw that promo for that show, like I don't know, it was like a White Rock show or something, like all his like pronunciations of I think he said juicer, which just like
juicer,
the most wildest shit. I'm just kind of curious if there's been anyone who's reached out and has either called you guys or like misspelt it, but like without knowing, or like any of that. Because it kind of is that thing where it's like, it's good on the searchability side because you have to spell it like the right way. But I'm sure there's other people that think you guys are spelt morning, like day and night morning. Yeah. You know?
Definitely, for sure. Yeah, we've had that. Like, actually, not as much as you would think. I think there's been like a couple of shows where they've like almost misspelled the name, and that was obviously fixed beforehand. But yeah, no, we've only had like a couple of times where it's like misspelled, but like who cares? I would, you know, like misspell it too, right? Like, like you have no idea unless you like know what the band's about and you actually see the name, right? But if you just hear it, I'd, you know, spell it the same exact way, you know, just like a Morning Star, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What were like, was there like, was any of the odd time that things were misspelled? Was it like just like for like a show, and then you're just be like, there's a U in there actually?
Yeah.
Like, oh shit.
Essentially. Yeah. Yeah. Basically. Yeah. And that's, like the furthest it's gone in terms of misspelling it. So
yeah. So again, going back to kind of like the early beginnings, was the game plan initially to be like, we want to tour once, you know, this is still in the midst of some COVID stuff in Canada. So was the goal like, we want to play the States, we want to do this shit for real? Like, was it gas all the way to the floor, or was it like, well, just play a couple of shows and see how it is?
Definitely, that was my mindset right off the bat, and it always has been my mindset. Like, I want to take it as far as possible every single time, because at the end of the day, that's all I want to do. At the end of the day, it's just like tour nonstop and just do that. Even if I'm like eating like peanut butter toast every day, starving, right? Do not care, you know. But as for the actual band, it would like the general like consensus was just to kind of play a couple shows and just like see where it goes. But like we're all like, you know, I'd like to say like decent, you know, like musicians, and we're all, you know, like fairly organized. So like it definitely, we had like a tight, you know, project going like right off the bat. So that definitely helped us kind of like move forward at like a decent rate. But yeah, we were just going to play, you know, a couple of shows and just see where it goes. But obviously in the back of my head, I'm like, like, you know, I obviously like want to take this far, right? But you're gonna have to see those first couple of shows and kind of see like what the vibe is, right?
Right.
You know?
And I think you guys definitely had like a leg up, because there's definitely like a number of like Canadian like metalcore projects. Like, you know, I think definitely like Western Canada specifically is definitely more metallic and metal leaning than some of the stuff that I've seen out in Eastern Canada. But I think the type of metalcore you guys play is like, to me, there's no one else that really does it like you guys. And I don't know if you guys realized that when you were starting the band, or if that was an intentional move. Like, we're going to be super melodic at times. We're going to have singing stuff. We're going to have just blistering guitar shit. Like, was it intentional to be, I guess, a little like bit more specific than being like, we're a metalcore band, but we're also going to play in specific niches?
Yeah, that's fair. Definitely Byron and Eli they definitely had that mindset. They definitely wanted it to be very like Undying, obviously, right? Which just like niche as it is, right? But then at the same time, it's just like a perfect storm as of just like everyone in the band coming together and having all their influences, right? Because like, for example, Eli loves all like the clean singing. Same with Byron, and like I love that shit too. But basically everyone just kind of brought their own special like spice to it, and it just kind of made a Morning Star like as it is. Because like for me, when it comes to like just even like writing the riffs, it's just like I love like the big open beautiful like melodic chords, and love the solos and just all that. And you know, Tyler's a fantastic songwriter, you know, and he really makes the songs pop. And then like Eli and Byron, they definitely have like the vibe down right? So it's like kind of everyone just adds in, and Kurt, you know, he was kind of you brought definitely a way more modern element, I guess you could say, to the band, right? Because we were all trying to like be very old school, and like Kurt definitely brought like a very modern approach, which was a very nice addition to like a lot of the songs, right? So everyone in that band definitely kind of like, at first it was like, like magic, and still is, but then for like the last album that we just recorded, definitely everyone was fighting over everything, but it was for the best. Yeah.
Right. But, when it's a full album, you want to make sure that, you've left no stone unturned. You're happy with every single decision because, I'm a believer that, a band could put out a pretty, a pretty good EP, but like an LP is where you want to be like, want to like bleed all over it and like, be like, this is who we are. And a lot of like perfect LPs are the records that like takes bands to that next level, right?
For
EPs,
sure.
It's
definitely.
like it can, but like LPs, we've seen with so many bands, and I've seen that like just skyrocket after that one record.
Yeah, definitely, that's true. And honestly, I thought that the EP that we did was more, I'm not going to say calculated, but definitely had more time to focus on that, because all the songs that we recorded for the last LP that we did, like a lot of the, like half the songs were like a lot of songs that we have like written, but it was like going through, like we're scrapping them, bringing them back, going through so many changes, just fighting over every aspect. And then basically there's like a couple songs on the record that were written within like the last 2 days before like recording. Mm-hmm. So it was like a mix of everything, right? But at the end of the day, like definitely it was like we definitely focused on every single detail that there was, and really thought it out, even though the whole writing process was very chaotic. Mm-hmm. But definitely put everything into it that we have. So
so let's talk a little bit about a reminder of the Wound Unhealed, which is coming out October 13th.
Friday the 13th.
Was that an intentional move?
I would think so. Yeah.
I would think so.
Yeah.
So, you guys recorded it out in Vancouver.
Yes, we did. We recorded drums at Flash Studio. So we did drums there. That was 2 days, I believe. And then we did all the guitars, bass, vocals. We did all of that at Tim's studio. So basically, our buddy Andre, he's good friends with Byron, and he introduced me to him and all that. He recorded and produced the whole LP there at Tim's studio out there in North Van.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the record, because I remember talking with Chris Dimas, who's recorded a lot of my bands. He was mentioning that he had a hand in some of the mixing and
he mixed
and
it,
mastering as well, and would be like showing me little clips here and there of the stuff, and I was just like, holy fuck, like this. It sounds unreal. I've only heard a couple of the tracks, but like even just the couple singles and stuff that you guys have like teased so far, it's like it definitely feels like the major like step up from the EP, not only songwriting wise but production as well.
Definitely, for sure, because the EP has definitely, like, in terms of like the mixing. So Tyler Pearson mixed and mastered that. It definitely has that old school vibe that like we were going for.
Right.
Excuse me, but this LP definitely wanted to take it up a notch. Sorry.
Nope.
And
off away.
Yeah. And basically, just take it up a notch. So Dre, which so he like recorded and produced the whole thing, and he really focused it, like every detail, and he really produced the shit out of it, right? So like without Dre, it definitely would not be like where it's at right now. Mm-hmm. For sure, because he was definitely like the mastermind. Well, not, but Dre's a fantastic songwriter, and he has a fantastic ear for like, oh yeah, how we change this, how we do this and this, and it was nice to have like like a set of different ears for like the mixing and the mastering, and then Dre producing it. So it was just nice to have it go through like a bunch of different years and like finals to kind of really like refine the sound, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because there's definitely like when a record comes out, like there's it's only the artists that know how many people, even if it was just a subtle piece of feedback off of like sending a demo to be like, what do you think of this? And be like, hey, you should double up the bridge here. Like that still in theory is helping out some, I don't know if it's entitled for like a full record cred, but like, when you can really look back on like a big project like that and be like, how many, like, this was truly a team effort, if not like
definitely for sure.
It takes a village to write a hardcore record kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, for sure.
It's really cool once you have like, trusted people to be able to give you feedback and then you can tweak as needed. But yeah, I'm very excited once it's out. I know as far as the time of recording this, we're at the very start of September, but I don't know if there's going to be more singles, music videos, any other promo that you guys are doing before the record kind of hits the airwaves. Anything you can say?
We got a single coming out September 19th. So that's going to be dropping with like pre-orders and all that. So basically we have vinyl coming out in 2 colorways, and that will be available through Days and the coming Strife.
Right.
And so that will be available September 19th, I believe, but the single is definitely coming out on the 19th. And then after that, it's just the album. And then we got some things in store definitely for like the new year in terms of like touring and all that. Everything's up in the air right now, but definitely once this album drops, we definitely want to take it to the next level in terms of how many shows we're playing.
For sure. And,
so, yeah.
I think when this episode drops, I think it will be the Friday before the Tuesday of when that new song is dropping. So, everyone who's listening to this on Spotify, go to the band profile, get the follow button, engaged, and, make sure that you hear that when it drops. How many guitar solos are on the record?
So for that one, we got, so we have 6 songs on that new record, like 6 brand new songs on side A, and those are all the brand new songs. And then on that one side is just 2. So basically for the song called "Morning Star," there's a solo on that one. And then the last track is almost like a interlude into side B, which is all 12-string acoustic guitar. And it's just basically a solo over top, kind of in and through the song, right? So there's only 2 on it, but they're definitely sick for sure. Definitely put some time into those.
So quality over quantity more so.
Definitely for sure, and gotta definitely put them in tasteful spots, right? Can't be soloing, like over every song, even though I try to do that, but
I'm sure that there's like probably other songs you're like, solo, and you're like, maybe not.
Yeah, exactly, right? But I know the 6 new songs, they're insane because Encased in Crystalline, we played that one live a bunch of times, and that one that's a single that just came out, and Corruption, that's on that. We played that live a couple times, and everything else is brand new. And then Burnt Offering too as well, which we played, live a couple times only in Vancouver. But we're definitely like going through all the songs, playing them live just because it's fun to play them, right? But
totally.
Definitely in terms of the music being like released, it's definitely going to be like a heavy hitting, like LP for sure, with a lot of variety for sure. Definitely dug into like the soft, I'm not going to say soft, but it's definitely, in my opinion, more melodic for sure.
Okay.
A lot more clean singing. Some dope shit on there for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Which like I love when, well, let me go back. I do not appreciate, is that the right way to say it? I do not appreciate when bands put out a record and it's a lot of re-releases of songs from promos and EPs and splits. And it's like, I understand that you're trying to make the length of to make it a full record.
Yeah.
But when the new record comes out and it's only 4 new songs, I'm like, I kind of feel cheated. And I just want the bands to make more and more fresh new music. I don't need like the extra re-recording or remaster of whatever it is. So
Yeah.
it's exciting. You know, I think that there's a bit of like a gray area where it's like, yeah, you guys are, you know, put 2 songs out of a promo. That's to promo a record down the line. But I would hope that, you know, people in bands who are listening who are either thinking about doing a record, it's like, I don't think I'm alone on the island to think that people who are fans of your band just want to hear more music versus the same song that could be a strong song, but you've already released that like a couple of years ago. Like just write something new.
Yeah, because like every song on that LP, all the new stuff on side A, it's all completely different, right? Each song is like each song is completely different, and that's what we strive to do, at least when we're like writing music. We think like, okay, what have we not done before? What more, like what certain aspects of like the songs that we have out already, or just like what do we want to dig into more? Like, you know, so like moving forward as a band, personally for me, it'd be like I want to dig more and lean more into the black metal side of things. Like, you know, definitely, you know, like a lot more blast beats, a lot more atmosphere, a lot darker, I guess you could say, right? And obviously that's just coming from me. That's like what I'm bringing to the table there. Everyone else in the band's completely different, so who knows how that's going to play out, right? But yeah, each song we're like, what can we do that's different? What should we like lean into more? Mm-hmm. What can we do to make this different, right? But still make it us, you know, but still like evolve the sound,
right?
You know?
Yeah. And going back to what you're saying about the you know, the EP's production wise was to be very true to like, you know, that style of metalcore. And
yes, definitely.
Kind of like playing into some, I guess, nostalgia in that sense. As someone that like, you know, I definitely listen to a lot of metalcore, but maybe listening to that style maybe like more later in life now.
Yeah.
When I first heard it, I was like, it just didn't like really do it for me initially, but like, I loved all you guys. So it's like, you know, I'm sure that this is going to kick ass when I see it live. When I saw you guys at Wild Rose, I guess 2022, that's where it connected with me. Cause when you hear it in like a more modernized production, I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
And then the fact that all this, you know, stuff for the new record is like kind of more leaning that way. I think I'm sure there's probably fans who could argue that they wish that you guys kind of stuck with that road.
Yeah, of course.
I think that is the right way to kind of really experience what you guys, because, you know, that's what people are going to see live anyways.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, it's definitely a fair point, because with the EP, we definitely wanted to capture that old school sound, right? You know what I mean? And got like a lot of compliments on how that EP just sounds in general, right? But yeah, playing it live is completely different. It's completely like different in terms of like just seeing like the guitar tones and all that, right? It's definitely more like modern, right? But at least on the LP, all the old songs that we've done, they've all been remixed and remastered. So you'll have 2 versions of them. So like whichever you prefer, right?
Yeah. So talking a little bit about the record, and, you know, it's very kind of serendipitous and cool to see, like, you know, you guys getting picked up by Days roughly around the same time of like Serration also having an album coming out through Days as well. And you guys, you know, doing a tour together is kind of a, you know, a really, I think just zooming out, I think it's a very cool thing, especially for like Western Canada bands and the scene in total overall, just to have 2 bands represented on inarguably like one of the top like hardcore labels like that are happening right now.
Yeah.
Lumpy's a friend of the show. He's been on 3 times at this point.
Yeah.
But like, what do you think? Like, have you been able to connect? Maybe what I'm trying to say is, have people found out about you guys and like, you know, maybe trickle down effect to some of the other bands within the Vancouver scene just because of that like Days logo on the album, or having that collaboration with them?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Like I would think so, right? Because like everyone that plays in, you know, everyone that plays in a Morning Star, we all play in other bands, right? And obviously, like once you're meeting people, you're always talking about that stuff, right? It just comes up. So I'm definitely sure that it has opened up these doors, to these other people, to these other bands in the Vancouver, like hardcore scene. I'm not 100%, like certain of it, right? But it just makes sense, right? And just with like the whole days thing, yeah, of course, like I'm sure people are, like checking out, like other bands in the scene and all that, because they, obviously we have a very lively scene here and things are bumping off, and you have tons of bands coming through and you have tons of bands coming out. So it's kind of hard not to keep your eye, like on the West Coast, right? So
right,
definitely anything just helps just build it up, right? And it's more exposure for everyone, right? So
totally. Let's talk gear a little bit.
Sure.
So I know, through the many times that I've seen you play live,
yeah,
you've brought the dope amps, you've brought the dope cabs, you've largely brought the dope guitars. So I don't know, like, how wide your, I guess, inventory is for all the different stuff that you have, but God forbid there's some kind of like apartment fire or like, something of that nature where you can only grab one of each. What are you grabbing as like this is all I can save, so to speak?
That's a good question. Well, when it comes down to amp heads, it would definitely be my Ampeg VH140C. So that's an old school solid state amp head that's pretty damn hard to find, but it was used on all like the early, like all the early Dying Fetus and like Suffocation albums. Has that very old school death metal sound. Those things are hard to come by. So that'd be the amp for sure. And then for the cab, I definitely take my Vader 4x12, which those are super hard to find too. They're definitely a very good, like, death metal cab. Definitely has a bit more high end to it for sure. And they are hard to find. Like they're still making cabs here and there, but in small runs, but obviously it's hard. So expensive to buy a cab and get shipped out, right? Because you just get fucked on like, shipping, right? And then when it comes to guitars, that is a good question. So basically in terms of playability, sound and tone and all that, that would definitely be my ESP E2. So I've used that one for like the last couple of shows, and it's made in Japan. It's, like sparkly green, has like, has Fishman influences in it, and it sounds fantastic, plays great. And that would definitely be like the one guitar. But if it came down to like sentimental value, it'd definitely be my old school shitty Jackson JS32, like my Rhodes that I used to use in Backbite with all the stickers on it.
Oh yeah,
that was my first flying V that my dad ever got me, and that was kind of like what really kicked everything, like into overdrive. So I still got that one, but yeah, it would definitely be those three pieces of gear for sure.
Right. So a couple follow-up questions off of those choices. Is solid state overrated or underrated in your opinion?
I think it's underrated.
I hard agree that it's underrated.
Yeah. It depends on the application that you want to use it for, right?
Sure.
And plus I'm just a big nerd when it comes to like that Ampeg. Obviously I'm not going to use for, like a Morning Star, right? But it just comes down to the, actual like application. And there's just like, I don't know, just something just brings me joy of just like buying rare gear, I guess you could say, right? But when it comes down to actual sound, it just comes down to what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day.
When, again, I mentioned that I grew up in Winnipeg. When I found out that the Withdrawal boys would rock PV Supremes.
Nice, yeah.
Those amps sound unreal. And those guys have a weird obsession with like collecting those amps. So like someone would be selling it in Regina and like they have 3, but they would still go out of their way to go pick that up because they're just so hard to find. And,
I know.
God forbid one's going to, kick the bucket. It's like, well, I already got a backup on a backup ready to go. If
exactly. And it's really hard to like replicate those old school PV amps at least, right? Because I've had, like one Supreme as well. I've had like Ultra Plus. I've had, a VTM. Like a Triple X and all that. And it's just like, obviously, those sounds are really hard to like replicate. And like, but usually it depends on the market too, because like all these old school PV amps, like sometimes people just sell them for dirt cheap and they sound fantastic. And that's why like I'll drive long distances to do that.
It's like, sometimes people know when they have a, an orange dark terror but sometimes people don't know what they can get out of like a solid state amp. And usually like I bought, I think it was, I'm trying to remember what it was, but I think it's a Randall RG 100 something. It was, I think Dimebag Darrell like used that amp when he was riffing. And, I bought that for like $150, and I think it sounds just as good, if not better at times than like when I play a 6505 or a 5150. And so like I think a lot of people write off solid state because they think of like the Line 6 Spider insane mode kind of solid state, when it's like that definitely has its time and place. But
for sure,
you know, I think a lot of people, you know, only look to like 2 or 3 amps in hardcore when it comes to like what's viable. And I think there's a lot more dope stuff out there for people.
That's fair, because you know, it's pretty, you know, like, you know, it's pretty like accessible, right? And a lot of people are, it's like, oh, this is the amp my friend told me about, you know, like I'll just buy that, right? But once you do, you know, some digging and like this and that, just depends on like if you even enjoy doing that in the first place. A lot of people just like to play the instrument, right? Almost like it's almost like I like gear almost more than playing guitar, right? And it's just like, yeah, when it comes down to just like finding those awesome deals on marketplace for these old school amps that are hard to find, it's just like a kind of a high, you know? And dude, once you're playing, right? And then like once you're playing actual like tube amps, it's kind of nice to take a step away and just play something different, right? Kind of readjust your ear for both amps, right? Because if you just keep playing to the same thing over and over and over, it kind of gets like numbs your ears out, I guess, like in my opinion, right? So it's always good to change up gear, and then even just changing up gear, in my opinion, inspires me to write different things.
Interesting. Okay. So it's like playing different types of gear will like provoke different ideas riff wise just because of the capabilities of what the amp will do. Yeah, I never 100%. Thought about it that way.
Yeah. So that's definitely like a big thing for me, at least when it comes to like guitars too, right? Like if I'm playing like, you know, like my BC Rich V, obviously I'm going to be way more inspired to play, you know, some like dirty death metal, right? But if I'm playing, you know, like on my like Gibson Explorer or like any of my ESPs, it's just all like different tones and vibes and just like the whole image around the guitar in the first place. It all kind of comes together where just to keep changing it up, it definitely, at least for me, it, you know, like inspires me, right?
Totally. And yeah, I definitely have had moments because, you know, I have like my at home amp is just like a Line 6 Pod XT Live that's just sitting underneath the desk here. And it's just because you know, I've been in living situations where I'm like, I don't want to like really raise hell by like, you know, turning up the tube amp. But 100% the riffs that you might think about when you're wearing headphones and you're just trying to like kind of, you know, either demo out a song or you're kind of forcing the ideas versus you're in a jam space and you can let the amp just like ring and breathe. Like for sure, you're going to write totally different songs
100%,
and even like totally different bands being in those two spaces for sure.
For sure. Definitely. Right. It just comes down to like your environment too. And who's in the band, like everything's a factor when it comes to, you know, right. But nothing, the one thing I'll say that nothing does beat, you know, pushing air through, you know, a cab with actual tube amp. In my personal opinion, I do love solid state and I love, you know, like modelers and all that. But if you got like old school 5150 block letter and you got like a nice, you know, like Mesa 4x12, it's a classic setup, but you just can't really beat it.
That's,
you know?
just spaghetti and meatballs when it comes to heavy music.
Exactly, man. You know what I mean? So yeah, just nothing beats in my opinion, you know?
Any amps you want to talk shit on, think is overhyped, something that you will play if it's the last option, but you prefer not to?
Overhyped. That's a good question. I wouldn't say that there's, in terms of overhyped gear, definitely say like the Quad Cortex for sure. Because that's a very expensive piece of gear when you can get like a way better modeler for a fraction of the price. But I've never had any firsthand experience with it. So I'm just talking shit at that point. I could be 100% completely wrong. But in terms of like overhyped gear, I don't think there really is any. Like basically at the end of the day, everyone has a different, you know, budget range and basically just taking what you got and just like making it work. Right. But, you know, obviously there's some pieces of gear that are like, you know, like even like those old school PVVTMs, I think they are overpriced, but that comes down to people, right? You know, like they sound fantastic. I had one, but super loud fucking amps too. It's so loud, but definitely when it comes to like old pieces of gear now, at least like even like a year ago, all the prices were skyrocketing. So you could almost say everything was overhyped, right? You know,
true.
Like everyone's asking so much money for these amp heads are worth like half the price, right? But now it seems like the market's coming down and everything's kind of more fair. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I said, this comes down to like, the application and just making what you have work, right?
For sure. I guess we've talked a lot about amps and guitars. Is there any like, because you seem, I don't know if you would consider yourself a full gear nerd, but like you're a very gear savvy. I'll say that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah.
Do you rock any specific pedals, or do you kind of like stick to like the amp and the guitar as like the main tone masters? Or do you sprinkle in some pedals in the mix of everything you're doing?
Definitely I'm big on the effects. So basically each band, I have a different rig. So basically my kind of go-to is definitely like a tube amp head, but definitely I do love pedals. I go hard for the pedals, and I definitely do need some extra juice. I can't really just plug into the front of it, like an amp and go for it, right? Usually my go-to is like I'll usually go through, obviously, like the tuner. Then I'll go through into a overdrive, which I'm always constantly changing, always buying and selling, right?
Right.
And I'm really big in like boutique overdrives too, even though those are overpriced. I'll tell you that. Well, all these boutique overdrives are like $400. It's just not worth the fucking money. And those are overhyped, especially all like I'm not going to say any like names, but there's definitely.
Yeah, you're like, let's keep all the doors open, so to speak.
Yeah. But definitely, yeah, like basically like meat and potatoes would be like, into the tuner, into the overdrive, into a noise gate, which I'm always constantly changing, I'm always on the search for a perfect noise gate. I've been through so many of them. But when it comes down to like what really kind of sparks that, interest like in me, and the one thing that I always need on my pedal board, no matter what, is definitely a chorus pedal for sure. And I love chorus, and you can definitely hear a lot of that influence in all of my past projects, right? And besides that, I love HM2 clones. I go hard for that, chainsaw, buzzsaw, like death metal, right? But with pedals, I'm always constantly changing them, rearranging them, just always fucking with it, like at the end of the day, right? But for AMS, that rig, I'm using a completely different rig. So basically it's just a Axe Effects FM3. So it's just a floorboard, modeler going into a Seymour Duncan Power Stage 200, right? So it's just a pedal board rig. That's all I need. I can plug it into a cab. I can plug it into front of house, anything. It takes me 1 minute to set up, 1 minute to tear down, and probably even like less time than that. And it's just dialed in,
a
good
lot
to go.
Less gray hairs for you, I'm sure.
Definitely, because I've done it so many times where it's like a lot of growing pains with gear. I'll tell you that much. Like, through playing so many shows and overcomplicating shit, it just takes the fun out of the playing show, and then you're like trying to troubleshoot. So with that, I use that on the Serration tour, and it's just like show up. It take me like 45 seconds, get to go, boom, right? Then tear down, always first one outside, having to smoke and a drink, So, right?
You're just like watching everyone else. You're like, sucks to suck, right,
sucks.
guys?
Yeah, exactly, right? And then for Bayonet Dismemberment, so actually I bought this Axe Effects FM3, and then I basically sold all my pedals for some reason, but now I'm building up, like a rig again. But the plan is for at least my new death metal band for the Bayonet Dismemberment. I guess we'll get into talking about the like recording of that. But live, I'll probably be going through my triple X through a Maxon SD9 Pro Plus into maybe a Fortin Zool, and then just throw like a cheap Boss DD3 on it, good to go. And then for Crucible, that's kind of still up in there. Still trying to figure out like what I kind of want to do for that, right? But definitely like a nice chorus, nice delay, and just trying, maybe use my 5150 350 watt stealth for that band, right? But right now it's kind of easy just to use like the FM3 for every single band, right? Because it's like it's a lot going on,
Right. So in the mix of changing things in and out, I'm a firm believer is like, I don't know. I think sometimes like I appreciate musicians who like are never content with like they're always like improving and like they're always like,
it's a personal hell, but
who, if there is any, is there a good the old reliable when it comes to pedals? Is there one, you know, even if it's something like a tuner or suppressor that you're like, this is the one that I don't need to keep changing like in or out? Are there any old reliables in your arsenal, or you're like, you don't
I am always changing it up, but if I'm in like a pinch and I have to go to like a music store and they're like, build a rig right now, like, I know it's cliche to say, but you can never go like wrong with a Boston S2 for a noise gate, you know, like Ivan STS9 for, you know, like overdrive or max on OD808, and then just like any tuner pedal, right? You know what I mean? It's just like, it works every single damn time. It sounds pretty damn good. It's like, you know, like 8 out of 10, right? Anything else, you're trying to chase this high, right? But yeah, it's just like, you can't, you know, like I said, there's no need to overthink pedal assists and that, even though I do and I enjoy doing it. But like, if you just want to play, it's like, you can't go wrong with those, right? So yeah.
So, you know, you brought up a couple of your other bands. You know, we talked a lot of Morning Star, but when it comes to the other projects that you're part of, like, talk to me about those. Are those kind of like solely as you're like, you know, this is like for the local shit, this is like for the homie kind of stuff? Or is there a similar drive and desire to like maybe do some stuff out of town and maybe do a little weekend thing here or there?
Yeah, of course, definitely. So I'm in 2 other bands. So the black metal band I'm in is Crucible of Sorrow, and that's with Alexander. He used to be in Sedition from Ottawa. And then the drummer Azzy plays in Cleaver. And basically, that band, we've been moving pretty fast. We have 2 releases under our belt already. It's been like a year and a half, and we're working on new stuff already. And we got some shows lined up. And that band, okay, every band that I'm in, it's definitely like the end goal is the same, right? It's just every band's going at a different pace, just in terms of like how much people are fucking with it, right? But the same amount of work is going into each and every single band. I'll tell you that much. So Crucible is coming along nice. We're working on some new stuff, and basically, we got a show coming up this Thursday at the Astoria with King's Rod, and then October 6th with Laminual Shroud from Victoria at the Wise Hall. And our plan moving forward with that band is to like maybe do another EP, but it would be nice to do like an LP. But with black metal, I find it's pretty hard to market down here, so it's either like just keep putting out music and playing shows and hopefully get picked up. So that band's kind of more of like a long-term band where it's like hopefully something comes if we just keep grinding it out, right? And then for Bayonet Dismemberment, that one's definitely balls to the wall, I'll tell you that much. All those songs, okay, so basically that band was formed maybe 3 months ago, and we had our first show like a month ago. And we've
wow. Very quick.
Yeah.
Can I also just say, like, Bayonet Dismemberment is like maybe one of the best Canadian band names I've heard in some recent years.
All credit goes to Azzy from Cleaver. He's the one that came up with that name. But yeah, so in that band, it's Azzy from Cleaver. It's Dre that he produced and recorded the Last AMS album there, and the last 2 singles before that. And then we have Alexander again from Sedition, and then we have Landon. He's a sick buddy of mine. Works down at a tattoo shop downtown Vancouver. Long blonde hair, has a total vibe going on for a death metal vocalist, right? And his first project in a long time, so he's doing vocals.
Oh, okay.
So so for that band, it was formed like 3.5 months ago, but some of the riffs were like leftovers from Groza and from this, and like maybe a backbite riff here and there that we try to use in this other band that never made off the ground called Law of Self with Luca from Groza. So it was basically like some recycled riffs. And me and Azzy
was that band? Was that the band that Luca was playing in? That there was like one video of one show that they played, and it was like 9 minutes?
That was his grindcore band. That was his grindcore band with Tommy Wilson, But no, so it's basically some recycled riffs, and Azzy and I kind of had like a skeleton going, and we had this idea just to do something different from Groza, right? And Groza had his, time and place, but what we wanted to really do is do like a Dying Fetus-esque death metal band with some slam influences, I guess you could say, even though that, Dying Fetus, I guess you could say they definitely have some, like slammy parts, right? But Dying Fetus is obviously my favorite band, as like you can tell. But I definitely wanted to do something really like that. And then, yeah, we basically got Alexander on board, and he's playing bass. And then Dre really wanted to be in the band, and that guy's hard to get a hold of. He's always busy, but he's a fantastic, like musician. So I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do a jam and see how it goes. And that guy really made these songs pop. He really glued them together and made them way better than like what they were. So because we just had like a skeleton, right?
Right.
And then I got Landon on board because I ran into him at the Sentence to Die show down here. And since then, it's just been like magic, man. The songs are like, the band is completely tight, like extremely tight, play to a click. The songs sound freaking fantastic.
Play to a click?
Heavy as fuck. Yeah. Heavy as fuck. And the EP has been recorded. So basically it's in the process of getting mixed and mastered right now. Album artwork's done. Tommy Wilson did it. And then I can't really say, but we definitely have a huge guest spot on the single that's going to be coming out sometime, maybe like early October, mid-October. So we're definitely coming out swinging because, yeah, we got some big plans for that band. We got some shit lined up already, but I can't really say.
I cannot get over the fact that your band has existed for 3 months, played your first show a month ago, and y'all play to a click already. When playing to a click is like, we've been a band for a year and we want to be like really professional, like let's just start right now. Why not?
It's hard to do, man, but it's definitely all Drake, man, because he's definitely his attention to detail and just his standards in terms of just like playing the actual songs as best as possible is immaculate. And I really, aspire to be like that too as well. But that all comes down to Drake, right? So
yeah.
But yeah, it's like 3 or 4 months, give or take. It hasn't even been like half a year, but it's been just fast, right? So
yeah, which is like, I love that you're kind of using the word like magic here, because like that can really, the right people at the right time, like writing the right music that everyone is aligned in, like you don't need that much time. Even if people have full-time jobs, have other commitments, like sometimes it can be really, really quick to like get shit off the ground. And like, I feel like you get better at being able to get shit off the ground really quickly the more bands that you play in, because like
exactly
then the bullshit and like the stuff that really eats away at your time, whether that's in the writing process or you're overthinking mixes or whatever it is. Like, every band that I've played in, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast can attest, like, once you do it more, it'll just become quicker and quicker. And to be fair, like just to play devil's advocate, there's probably projects that people start where they want to be very meticulous about it, and it could take an entire year for one record to come out. But I think if you're more in the business of like just going with the flow and just letting things naturally happen, if you keep doing bands, like things will happen very, very quickly. And it sounds like that's the situation
for sure. That's definitely where I get my best results, because like if you try to overthink shit, you're just stuck there for a year and it just sounds like shit at the end of the day, in my opinion. You know, like what I mean? Where it's like if you try to overthink it, like sometimes it just happens right then and there. Just leave it, just walk away, right? And getting shit, like off the ground fast just comes down to like, being in tons of bands, just kind of know all the bullshit that you have to deal with. But it really helps us having certain connections where you can just get shit lined up fast. And you got homies that can help you out here and there. And like the biggest thing is just making the band a priority, which has been the biggest struggle since I've been, like a musician trying to start bands and being in bands. If everyone can just commit to like 1 or 2 days a week and you can stay at band for 3 years, you will make it. Simple as that. Like whether you suck or not, right?
Yeah. Like it's honestly true. Like your band could be very mid, but like if you guys are committed and you go at it with the right ethos of like just wanting to play shows, like it's not guaranteed, but it is way more likely for y'all to get that cool fest opportunity or whatever it is, versus the bands that overthink stuff are the ones that kind of just like
just treading water,
treading water. Perfectly said, for sure.
Yeah. Just all comes down to grinding it out, man, and having the passion, but you can't grind it out if you don't have the passion. So right.
That might be, the tagline of the episode, right?
There you go.
When it comes to like all the stuff that you're doing, you know, like what's the, it's not like a time frame per se, but like I know a lot of people when they play in different bands, they view certain years of their life as like the golden years of whatever is like, you know, happening. And obviously like it's way easier to do lots of touring and all these different things, you know, when you're, you know, in the young, dumb, like 20s, so to speak, where you can, you know, live super cheap with like 5 other people, especially in Vancouver, you know, that's a struggle
it's
in
hard
and
to
of
do
itself. But like, I can attest, at least for myself, that like a lot of the cooler opportunities and just better bands have come in the back half of my 20s and into my 30s now. So like in the midst of that, like how do you personally push or like either set your life up in a way to still maintain, you know, I might have to have more responsibilities and shit in the mix here, but like I'm still creating bandwidth to, like you said, like, you know, maybe one band is super busy now, but like I'm still going at it hard for every project.
Yeah, that's definitely a good question. So basically when it comes to like how I set it up, it's like basically all 3 bands are my top priority at all times, besides being homeless on the street, right? You know, so basically that's all I really do in my free time. That's what I enjoy doing, keeps me busy. So basically how I have everything set up is just like, basically I'm just like living down here right now and working every day and doing this and that just because I'm chasing the dream, and I can't really do that unless, right? Like, you know, like I need a place to sleep, you know, I need to feed myself obviously. And, you know, just being like an adult. But at the end of the day, the reason why I wake up is to like chase the dream. That's what I want to do. I'm going to make it happen. And it's just basing everything to set myself up for success when it comes to these bands. So like if a touring opportunity comes up or just anything like that, right, where I have, you know, like the financial resources, you know, to do that. But at the end of the day, if I didn't have the resources, I'd just be like, fuck it, I don't care, I'm doing it, you know, like anyways, right? Just crash at someone's house. But yeah, it's definitely, you know, tricky to balance. But if you enjoy doing it like anyways, and it's your passion, then it's not like you're really, you know, like what I mean? It's like what I'm going to be doing anyways after work, either way, you know. So just kind of, right?
Probably pick
like,
up a
you know
guitar
what I mean?
one way or another.
Exactly, right? So it's like what I'm doing all the time anyways, right? So it's just what it is.
At this point, when you sit down to play guitar, are you like, okay, this has to be in a Morning Star day and this has to be a Christmas, like, do you get that meticulous about it? Or are you like, you pick up a guitar and just start riffing and just see what comes out, and then you're like, oh, I guess we're going more this way right now?
Yeah. So essentially that I just, pick up my guitar and I start playing, and then basically just decide which band I kind of want to, you know, like want to use it for. And then I kind of pitch it to the guys. Right. But the only struggle I have with that is like, there's a bit of crossover between Crucible and AMS. There's definitely some crossover there. So it's just trying to figure out, like, I can turn this bass riff into something sick for AMS or something sick for Crucible. Right. So, but yeah, I basically just start writing and just, you know, I see what happens.
Have you at any point, or do you think that there will be any point where you'll have to either do double duty at a show or godforsaken triple duty and play all your current bands under one bill?
Yeah, maybe. Well, like I already did double duty there at the White Rock show, and that one was fun. Like I've done double duty a couple times, right? But usually it's just more fun for me, right? Because honestly, like if I'm going to play a show, I'm just like, not, I can't say like anxious, but I just want to play, right? You know what I mean? Right. I just like time just drags on. So honestly, I enjoy doing double duty. So, but yeah, there was a time that I had to do triple duty. I guess I would definitely be kind of pushing it for sure, but like I'd do it.
I feel like, you know, when you have to do double or triple for guitar, it's definitely like, it's like, oh, I just get to do that again. But like maybe it's slightly different genre of music or whatever.
Yeah.
The reason I ask is, you know, we've had a few people on the show that, you know, they are self-proclaimed almost always doing double or triple duty, but they do, you know, guitar, bass, and then drums, or guitar, singing, or whatever it is. And it's like, that's a lot when you have to tear something down and then immediately build something up for the next set. When you just do guitar, you're just like, I might have to change out a couple pedals and maybe twist some knobs, but otherwise I'm ready to go.
Yeah. It's not that big of a deal anyways, right? You know, enjoy doing it. But yeah, I could definitely see, if you're doing like vocals and then you're doing drums, fucking, that seems like a headache for sure. And definitely pretty stressful. I don't know if I'd want to do that, but thankfully I only play guitar. So
yeah, you're like, I just got six strings to worry about at the very least.
That's all I need.
Dream guitar that you either hope to own one day or hope to find, maybe it's not in production anymore. Is there anything that's like, you know, before I'm in the ground, I need this?
There's a lot of guitars, definitely, for sure, that I could say that for sure. Yeah, too many. But the one thing I could say, the one guitar that I am on a hunt for right now would be a old school BC Rich Ironbird for sure. Whatever model it may be, not like any of like the platinum models, but you know, like an old school BC Rich Ironbird, but like made in the USA. The classic R on the headstock, you know. So those are really hard to come by, and they cost a lot of fucking money, right? But anything BC Rich, I love, and But there's too many guitars. I can't say that there's just one that. Okay, there is maybe one. I forget the name of the exact model, but there's this magazine shoot that Kerry King did in this magazine. I used to play it live. It's this old school ESP. I don't know what model it is, but it's a Flying V with like the blood, and it's almost like blood splatter camo on it, and it has like the ESP cock stock, and it's a Flying V.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's just like one of one, but that is the one guitar that, that's the one guitar that, definitely has to have, because that would be impossible to get. Yeah. It's fucking sick though, man. He's got like the mullet going on and shit, you know, the tight jeans. It's definitely a vibe.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah.
There's definitely like it's funny, when I first started playing guitar, the very first guitar I had was a Jackson Warrior, like
nice.
the X shape. Yeah. And I think I've just always, with most things within music, I think whatever was popular, I always like tried to find more identity in like something that was like off the beaten path. So I would play like a Fernandez or like something that was like a little more just unique versus like only playing. Like I did own like a number of LTD EC1000s or things like that, but like I always preferred having the more like, yo, what is that? So but there was a dude who's my only like actual, this goes back to the guitar teacher talk that we were talking about earlier. There was only one that was like, when you get older in life, you know, obviously, you know, money's going to be tighter. You're going to want to buy a guitar that can play any style of music. So he was like, buy Gibson Les Paul or buy like, you know, a Fender, whatever. But I'm 30 now and I still crave having the wildest looking shit. Yeah. You know, like,
hell yeah, man. Yeah.
Like, because frankly, I don't want to play like, you know, like little rock ballads or whatever. Like, I want to play some riffs, and I want to have something that looks menacing on stage.
Fucking right. And you just feel like a fucking rock star, you know, like what I mean? And it's just like, for me, anything that's pointy, man, I love, you know? And it's just like, you just feel just like badass when you're up on stage playing that shit, you know? Mm-hmm. And those guitars are usually hard to find, man. So it makes me even like want it more. But yeah, like, you know, I'm only 26, but I definitely find as I get older, I just want more gear.
More gear that's like more obscure gear for sure.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. Definitely more obscure, which is, you know, costs a lot of money, you know, but whatever, man. You know,
maybe this can be one of the last questions before we start to wrap up. In all of your Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji, Craigslist, whatever your search of choice is, what's your best gear hunt story, weird interaction? Because, you know, I've done my fair share of like showing up at people's sketchy houses at like 10:30 at night to buy a Boss pedal and not really realize what I'm doing at the time of being 16 or whatever the fuck. Anything come to mind when it comes to, you know, your gear pursuits?
So I got two. So the first one is probably like one of the best scores I've had, and It's the one that I can just remember off the top of my head, but it was like old school Crankenstein amp head.
Okay.
And those things used now, I'm not too sure how much they go for used now, but I think in the range of like $1,500 to like $2,500. I scored this thing for like $150.
Get out.
Yeah, and like,
damn,
I flipped it pretty fast because like this wasn't my kind of thing, I was like living at home. I couldn't really even crank it anyways, right? It's just like fucking 18 at home, just always on Marketplace. But that was definitely like one of the best deals I've gotten. I've gotten tons of like sick ass pedals for like $20-$30, but you have to be on top of that and drive there at like 11 o'clock at night. Like I'm on that shit. It's kind of sad,
right?
But,
Like, like the ads posted 1 hour ago. You're like,
yeah, no, like,
send
boom,
the address.
done.
I'm on my way.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So I've done that way too many times to count, but, there's been, like a couple of deals where it's been like, it's been kind of just like weird. But I remember when I was like young, I bought this custom Sigary FF7 guitar. So I had like an ebony top, ebony fretboard, all fan fret. And it had like the classic Black Machine headstock.
Okay.
And I traded him some like Ibanez RG 1421 or something like that, right? And basically I just told him that like, hey, I got it from like Long McQuaid, like, which I didn't. I was just trying to get this guitar, right? I just thought like, oh, he's not going to want the guitar if I bought it used, right? But I was like 16 or 17, just, fucking stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we do the trade and it's a, awesome deal on my end. But then he was like, yeah, I went to Long McQuaid and like, apparently like you never purchased it here. And he like threatened to call the cops on me, this and that. And I'm like, hey man, I don't know, dude. I just like bought it off Craigslist, but not that crazy of a story, thank God, because I've had a lot of interactions through Craigslist and Marketplace, right? But that's as crazy as gotten, thank God. But definitely,
like, is that even something where it's like someone sold me something, but they said like, is that? I don't think that's even something that you can like charge someone for.
Yeah.
Like it's something you could definitely like be petty and sue for. But
definitely, for sure, right? It's something stupid to even just lie about on my behalf anyways in the first place. But I don't even know like why I did that. But that's as crazy as it kind of gets, man. I meet a lot of weird fucking people, but it's the price you pay, man.
It is the price you pay, but I've always in majority of the stuff of just random stuff I bought used, and sometimes you actually find something that's like so unique and, it stands the test of time. And if anything, it'll just make for a good story on a podcast at one point.
Exactly. Right. So, yeah, man.
Yeah. So, Chris, the very last question that I ask everybody before we start to like wrap up the episode fully,
sure.
is a favorite mosh related story that you would like to share. Now, doesn't
mosh
need
related
to
story.
Be you specific. It could just be at a show you were playing, a show you were attending. If it happened to you or you did it, like whatever's first to your head is how we start to end the show here.
That's a good question, man. There's obviously like a lot of good mosh down here in Vancouver and a lot of good stories, right? But I got two. One involves me and the other does not involve me, but probably like my favorite one was when Trapped Under Ice came down. They played, I believe it's called the Hindenburg down here. Mm-hmm. And it was with Worldview, I believe, Putrid Brew, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember who else. Odd Man Out, maybe.
Yeah. Because this is like, it's funny you mentioned that show. That's very early Scope days, and Matt from Kelowna drove for that show, and he filmed that. So it was TY, Putrid, Worldview, and Odd Man Out. Yeah,
that show was absolutely insane. But I completely just got the drinks going so fucking hard, man. And basically, I was just giving her, dude. And I'm not too much of like like a mosher. It's not really my thing. You know what I mean? And it's like fuck it. I'm gonna start stage diving for the show. So I did a couple times, successfully. And then like on the third one, just complete idiot, just drinking and shit, just gooned out of my mind, just hopped off the stage into like an empty part of the fucking room where like no one's even standing, like landed right on my back. I was like, fuck. So that really fucked up my back for like a week and a half. So that was probably the last time, honestly, I actually did mosh, because I never really even moshed before. And then the second story I have, Yeah, it was a short run. And I was like, whatever, it's done, man. And then second one, Backbite was playing the show. I can't remember with who, but it was at the Black Lab, and this vocalist basically was stripped down naked and was just jumping on people. And I'm like, damn, this is some wild fucking shit. And then I'm like, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Dude, it's funny. Naked moshing has come up a couple times on this podcast. Whether there's one band specifically that I discovered because someone was moshing naked at their album release show, and it hit the Revolvers and those kind of places. I've never actually questioned what I would do in a situation where someone is naked moshing. And 9 times out of 10, I'm filming the show, so I almost have to commit to like the bit, and then have to worry about blurring and all that bullshit after. But the 0.1% of people who decide to do that, they don't give a fuck about decency or anyone.
No, just extremely uncomfortable. But yeah, it wasn't even like, it was like the actual vocalist of a band.
Right. So you're like, playing, it's even more uncomfortable because you're like, I'm here to watch you, but now I don't want to, but like now I don't want to be rude, and you're naked.
Nah, I would definitely be rude. I'd tell you that much. They jumped on me.
You would just like pound back a couple drinks and then, just like jump on that person like you did at the TUI show, just to like maybe knock them out
essentially,
or something.
Just destroy my back on them, basically. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then, Taylor would, from Juice would be on stage like he was at the show eating the chips. Yeah. That was the same show, right? Iconic moment.
Yeah, Trapped Under Ice one?
I think so.
Yeah, he was like eating Miss Vicky's. Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah.
Dude, that was iconic.
That was a good show, man.
When I saw that photo of that, like, the memorable Canadian moments, like that is a memorable hardcore Canadian moment for sure.
Definitely like one of the best shows I've been to. That's when I set it off for me for hardcore. I'm like, damn, this is what's up.
That's what's up. So, Chris, really appreciate you, jamming with us and chatting about all the dope bands that you're a part of. All the links for all those dope bands will be in the show notes in the description. Anything you want to say, send the people off on, plug, shout out. The floor is yours, my friend.
That's a good one, man. At the end of the day, just, just keep grinding it out, man. Just got to make the dream happen. It's not going to happen if you're just sitting there, just, you got one shot, one life. That's all I got to say.
I love the posy end. Dude, I feel, I think you before this episode have always kind of been between the, Chris isn't really an acquaintance, but I feel like we haven't had as much time to become like real friends. But, just having learned so much about your story and your outlook, and I don't know, there's been a lot of really inspiring things for me to take away from this conversation.
Oh yeah, man. Thank you.
And again, like love all of your musical endeavors, and wish nothing but the best for not only the Morning Star release, but everything you're going to be doing in the future. But thanks again for chatting with me, and very excited.
Yeah, thanks for having me,
man.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, thanks for having me, man. You take care.